Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show, Science Dispatch, episode 59. My name is Cameron English. I'm your host, as always, joined again by Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. For those of you who can't see, he's flexing, big, strong Dr. Chuck. And then we're joined, our special guest steps down out of his ivory tower once in 3 months or so. Dr. Josh Bloom is with us, Director of Pharmaceutical and Chemical Sciences at ACSH.
Wait, can people see this?
No, I can allow them to.
No, I mean, I look more atrocious than usual, so I need to not be on camera.
Okay, fair enough. Josh is handsome as ever, everyone who's listening to this over the internet.
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, it's been an exciting year, and it is the new year as you guys are listening to this. So I hope you had a great one, great Christmas and all that. And we've got some interesting science and some just outright silliness to finish out 2023 for everyone. So this first story, simply enough, is called Range Anxiety. This is by Dr. Dinnerstein. The second story, which we'll get to in just a few minutes, is called Big Bidet Aims to Wipe Out Charmin, which is Josh's scholarly take on the science behind the bidet, which apparently is much more popular than I anticipated. But we'll get to that thrilling story in a second. Let's talk about range anxiety. And Chuck, let me read this intro, and then you can kind of break down what we're talking about. So you write at the top here, plug-in electric vehicles running solely on electricity are the cornerstone of the effort to reduce vehicular emissions. Prediction of electrical use and environmental benefit base their calculations on vehicle miles traveled, assuming that the number of miles driven with electrics is the same as those by conventional fossil-fueled vehicles. A new study questions that assumption. Okay, take it away, Dr. Dinnerstein.
Okay, so I mean, it really begins with the fact that the assumption has been made that as we all transition to electric vehicles, we will continue to drive our vehicles the same number of miles that we've been driving our fossil fuel cars. And the researchers put that assumption to the test to see whether, in fact, that was the case. And lo and behold, what they found is that electric vehicles are being driven significantly less miles than a conventional fossil fuel car. And so they then try to get a better sense of what might be the underlying cause of that. And while they didn't say it quite directly, it really comes down to a problem of what I would call range anxiety. My first experience with range anxiety was when I was in a Tesla with my friend who we just went out to have lunch in the neighborhood. And when he looked down to see that he only had a 5 or 6% charge left in his car, and he was then panicked trying to determine where he might go to fill it up and how long that might take. Now, because the Tesla cars are really built by computer engineers, there is an app built right into the system to tell you where the nearest charging station was, which was, as it turns out, his home. But it was interesting to see that all the way home, he was quite concerned that we weren't going to make it, and he promised that I would stay by my phone in case I had to rescue him with my fossil fuel car. So range anxiety is really is a real thing, and what you can see is that the initial models of the Tesla had what they were saying was a range of 250 to 300 miles. Most people will say that was an overestimate to begin with, and those kind of mileages mean that only certain groups of people will be able to use the car in that way because they still have to be charged. Now, the thing about charging is that it's far less expensive to charge an electric vehicle than a fossil fuel car, but it takes a lot longer. It's not as if you can pull into the gas station, pop in the hose and be out of there in 5 minutes. It takes at least 15 to 20 minutes to supercharge your car. And so that raises the question of how are you going to spend your time while there. So one of the unintended consequences of the electronic vehicles will be that the gas stations will once again morph into something different than they were. I don't know if you've noticed, but nearly all gas stations today come with a mini mart attached to them. And the reason for that is because there is no margin in fossil fuel. The amount of money that they're making on pumping gas is minuscule. And the only way that the companies can make money at this point is by having those additional shopping services available. So you can see how if you have to be there for 20 minutes, we might start seeing that McDonald's starts to pair up with an EV station. So you might as well have a Big Mac along with your Tesla fill up. So I thought that was kind of an interesting overall scenario for things. But what the researchers did is they looked at the sale of used cars and found that the odometer readings were far less than they would have anticipated for a comparable fossil fuel car. And on that basis, they say we're driving less. That also means that the market for the cars at this point is different. The people that can easily make use of an electronic vehicle are the people that don't leave their neighborhoods or that live in an urban area where it's just running around and doing a few errands. The classic people that spend time in their car commuting are going to find that it is difficult to switch to an EV vehicle. And then the interesting thing, of course, that comes from that is that lately EV sales, which were initially fairly robust, have gone flat. And one of the arguments made is that probably the best transition at this point is a hybrid vehicle, where you get the advantages of electronic motor recharging the system, and you also have the advantages of fossil fuel. So you still have a significant range. You can pretty much go wherever you want and fill up. My son has one. He loves it. So there we go.
There is there's something, I'm trying to find the word for it. Maybe it's maybe bait and switch is a little too harsh, but it seems to me that electric vehicles have been sold and everyone has decided that this is our way, like a real transition away from fossil fuel use, like primarily from energy generation and transportation. Those are the biggest, and I guess heavy industry too, but right, transportation is one of the big gorillas in the room, so to speak. And I think what the study highlights for me is there are clearly all of these issues that have not been thought through. They haven't been addressed yet. Maybe they will be. It just takes really smart people time to do the math and figure out how they're going to build a better battery or a better charging station or what have you. But it seems like we're going at this backwards, right? We didn't happen upon a technology and go, this is viable and we can make this work. It was almost a political decision, I want to say, where everyone said, we need to end fossil fuels. This is how we're going to do it. And now we're running into these issues. So what, like you mentioned, that sales are flat or declining, I guess, whatever estimate you're looking at, but it's because the cars aren't reliable. And Consumer Reports came out and said that of all publications, they just said people are having issues with, there's 20 different systems throughout these cars and they're all having real serious problems, that the owners are investing a ton of money in. So what do you think? Am I being a little too dramatic here, Dr. Dinnerstein?
I hate when you start with that Dr. Dinnerstein. That really puts me on the hook there.
I better get nothing wrong.
Too,
Excuse me, Joshua?
I got an opinion too.
Well, let's start with your opinion.
I'm sorry, Josh. I want you to feel included. This is a safe space.
It is. I will buy the last gas-powered car in the world before I buy one of those stupid things. This is a unicorn. When Chuck says 20 minutes, you also can see 45 in other places.
Oh, for sure. If you don't have a supercharger.
And that's without four idiots in front of you. So, nobody is going to, especially like New Yorkers, they're not going to sit there for an hour and a half to get their cars charged. They're not going to buy them. Obviously, 2 million of them just got recalled yesterday, so that doesn't help either. But and here's a little known fact for non-New Yorkers. Let's say you're driving electric taxi around and you're running out. Where do you go? Just about all the stations in Manhattan are in garages. So if you've never been in a Manhattan garage, if the capacity is 200, there's 700 cars in there. So it's like Frogger trying to get those cars in and out of there. And that's where the charging stations are kept. Not only that, they charge you for garage time, which you see on the sign, special $10, and then it says for the first minute, and then it's like $27 for an hour. So there's a $27 surcharge, and I'm not kidding about $27 for an hour either.
No, not at all. I hate to veer from my political leanings, but I think there's a problem with central planning on this project, and then it was passed down from above, and the infrastructure and all the things that are necessary to make this really work are not in place yet. And until they're really in place, a lot of the sale of electronic vehicles are virtue signaling more than anything else. And now it's interesting. I have somebody in my neighborhood that is virtual signaling both sides of the spectrum because they have a Tesla and a Ford 150 pickup truck in their driveway. So I'm not really quite sure which way they're signaling, though I can see that they can signal to any group they wish, depending on which car they take out for the day.
Well, the Ford is to pick up the Tesla once it's stuck in the middle of the highway. You can tow it.
But Chuck, that is a really good point, though, and I don't. I know you were being tongue in cheek, but it's not really political to say, there's trade-offs involved here, and there's real costs, and we have to consider who's going to actually use these vehicles. And I mean, it sounds like if various governments get their way, we all will be forced to use them, and that's how they're going to make these work.
You would think that they would have gone with the hybrid model because that allows everybody to make a transition. Mm-hmm. And that allows time for the infrastructure to build up and change. Simply going from one type of fuel to a completely different one makes that far more difficult to do. And you see this problem also carries over to the car manufacturers. Now, I having driven in 2 or 3 different electronic vehicles at this point, I will say that the difficulty with the Tesla is it was designed by computer people. And so it's like driving a computer, which is not a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Once you get into an EV that was built by an auto manufacturer like BMW, those are beautiful cars. And they drive like cars, and they're amazing. But BMW has made a choice. They make no hybrids. They make an electronic version of the car and a fossil fuel version of the car. You might buy either one. But,
right.
But they don't have separate models of different kinds. They just, the entire line is EV or the entire line is fossil fuel. Take your choice.
Hey, Chuck, I would argue that it's not just an infrastructure problem. I think there's still a massive technology problem.
In terms of the batteries or in terms of...
Yeah, the batteries, the range anxiety, the range, and the time it takes to recharge them is... if you could recharge the thing in 5 minutes and it went 300 miles... everybody would buy them. But if you can go 200 miles and have to wait an hour for a charge, nobody's going to buy them.
Well, now some people have suggested that we switch to not recharging, but just pulling the battery and popping a new one in, just like if the car was a flashlight.
Yeah, well, that's good for the environment for sure. We should all do that.
Well, then you can recharge the batteries at your leisure and go from there. It's interesting because one of the things that I'm doing in the next few weeks is having that discussion with the military people about EVs on the battlefield.
Mm.
And one part of me recognizes that that's probably not a good idea, but the other part of me says that if we turn this problem over to the military, there will be a very good, very durable battery within a year or two.
Possibly. The thing that's strange to me, though, is that when it comes to fighting wars, generally, we don't say, well, we've got this political agenda that you're going to participate in. I guess that's happening more and more, but like when it comes to submarines, those are nuclear powered, right? Because those carry the big bombs, so we're not going to mess around with.
And they stay underwater for long periods of time, so they're not popping up to refuel.
Right. So in other words, I don't know, maybe this is cynical of me, but it sounds like when we need things to work, we just do what works, and we don't waste time with all of this silliness. And there's other things beyond the scope of this study that are important, like battery recycling. I mean, almost none of these car batteries are recycled. They're liable to explode. They're difficult to dismantle. The rare earth metals and minerals you need are already, electric vehicles are the biggest demand on these. So that's a ton of mining. And then if you have millions upon millions of people driving these cars, you're only going to need more of them, So it's been interesting to watch organizations like the International Energy Agency and the EPA sort of dance around the very difficult facts here.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So in other words, I guess that's a way of saying there's a lot of math magic going on, to use a term that you're
yes,
of,
it's
Chuck.
Absolutely. It switching all to an EV environment remains aspirational at this time, rather than operational, to use a phrase I ran across today. And I think that was part and parcel of what the article was getting at, and that the researchers showed. I mean, they took one of the basic assumptions of the models and showed that it just doesn't hold water.
Whose idea was it to carry a spare?
A spare?
Yeah, a spare battery.
No, not to carry a spare battery. When you would pull into the recharging station, they would pull the battery. Like a D battery. They pop a D battery out,
right?
Pop another one in.
Yeah, that's actually I've thought of that, and that's one way to make this thing work. Because I'm thinking, like, you're talking about, like, keeping it in your back seat, and it weighs 1,000 pounds.
Yes, and popping it into the car is going to be still a re-engineering of what they're doing.
Yeah, but that I think is a good idea. Maybe the only good idea.
Maybe. I mean, and again, you're the chemist, so you probably know better, but it seems to me that you still have the recycling issues. You still have the demand on heavy metals, and like you still have to scale the technology. I guess that's the ultimate problem, is even if you're swapping out batteries.
Bingo. Scaling, taking something from the laboratory or from a small test group and scaling it up to full size. There is what some people have termed a loss of voltage, pun intended, I guess, in this case. And that what works very well in the laboratory or on small scale does not necessarily work as well at large scale because of any of these problems that we've talked about.
Just a final thought here, and comment on this, either of you, if you want to. But of course, EVs are heavily subsidized. Consumers get rebates for buying them. There's deep discounts from the dealerships. Of course, the manufacturers are heavily subsidized. The charging stations are subsidized by the federal government. So in other words, to get this lackluster performance still costs us an arm and a leg. So that's got to be addressed at some point, because at some point you just run out of money where it just does not make sense, but then you can't possibly afford it, So I don't know. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Good luck finding a politician who will speak out against electric vehicles.
And I mentioned it briefly in passing in the article, but having an electric vehicle, in addition to virtual signaling, does help you out in other ways. It's inexpensive to fuel, so that's a nice thing. If you notice, from the holiday commercials. There was one commercial for an electronic car, and the little girl was asking how Santa was able to make it to all the different places. And the family said, well, because he gets special parking as they pulled up in front of the EV charger in front of the building. And if you look at a lot of the buildings now, right next to the disabled individual parking are EV chargers. So if you have an electronic vehicle, you get a better spot in there. And again, the other thing that I found was with Hertz, when I rented my Hertz fossil fuel car, I had to bring it back with 90% or more of that gas tank full. And if I used an electronic vehicle, 10% was fine with them. So,
right. Yeah, because they're not carrying the tab as much as they are with gas,
exactly.
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. Interesting stuff. Problem not solved. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious because they're like in California, there's laws with teeth that are saying you're going to start driving these more and you're going to like it. So I'm very curious to see how that unfolds. But while we contemplate, real high level, serious policy, environmental issues, let's talk about toilets. So I'm 35 years old. I have a family and I own a home, and I have to read this sentence, Josh, thanks to you. So here we go. Anuses are like martinis. Some like them dry and some don't. And in the bathroom, a similar debate continues. Hardly a day goes by when the bidet versus toilet paper war fails to rear its ugly head. This is only one more reason why ACSH, flush with newsworthy articles, is the place to go to learn about this and similarly vital issues. Buckle up. Now, Josh, and in fairness to you, you conceded that this is not an educational article. And as someone who spent a few minutes reading it, that's true. I didn't learn anything. So maybe you can explain what you're going for here. Is it just a little bit of levity at the end of a very difficult year?
Cameron, if you knew all of this, then it's time for some self-examination because you've been reading some weird stuff, Daddy-O, because no one should know all of this.
Or any of it.
Well, it's like electric vehicles. Some people like them and some don't. And there's a debate. And when I saw the Washington Post article about how using toilet paper is grosser than you think, here's a better idea. Instead of wiping with toilet paper, try a bidet. Well, I figure if this is in the Washington Post, I need to discuss it and and give it the gravitas that it deserves.
It complements the rest of their science coverage, let's say.
It does. So, it was the usual kind of argument. What gets what cleaner? The technology of bidets, the geopolitical bidet situation, because it's some places they're all over the place, some places you never even heard of them. I mean, this is an international incident we're talking about here. So I'm going to focus on the comments because that's where the best part is. But I should just mention, keeping Chuck's article in mind, that we also have something I would call range anxiety here. And this occurs, I know the viewers can't see the photo, but I picked up a photo of a toilet next to a bathroom wall with no toilet paper. And I'm saying about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet away from it is the bidet. So the obvious question is, how do you get there without the toilet paper?
Carefully.
Well, there's the possibility of the danger zone between those two.
Careful.
Where I noted that one should be careful not to assume that those are goobers or raisinets lying on the floor. Is a stop laughing at me. It's a technological problem. So with that, um, there's the science.
Okay, wait, I'd like to speak
Please
on
do.
behalf of Big Bidet. I have several, to be a contrarian once again, I have found several important facts to share with everyone on the topic.
I can't wait.
Okay, well, here we go. First of all, as we will all agree, it is a cultural uh, phenomena.
Very much.
Uh, in Japan, 80% of the households have a bidet. We're nowhere close to that here. I would say my first experience with a bidet is in my native land, where Cameron currently is in California, with a $9,000 or $10,000 toilet, and I must say it was lovely. A little
Oh,
strange, but lovely nonetheless. Okay,
just made my day.
I'm here to share with you. Okay. On the other hand, here is the first of the two fun facts that I wanted to share with you. In 1940, General Franco determined that there must be hygienic bathrooms in all homes in Spain. And as a result, over the course of time, Spain was the first of the EU countries to basically have bidets in all the homes. It was considered more hygienic, and it was also considered a way to attract other European tourists. But for those people that are concerned about the government now insisting that we get rid of our stoves because they run on gas, we have history that shows almost a century ago that the government was busy telling us how we could run our bathrooms. So I thought that was fun fact one. The other fun fact was the reason given by many people why bidets have not been embraced in the United States is because most of the exposure to bidets occurred with GIs during World War II, and the bidets were found in the brothels that the GIs were busy liberating. And as the person describes, the bidets had a difficulty because they were a symbol of sin in a puritanical culture. So there we go.
Yeah, gives a whole new meaning to the phrase "spreading democracy," doesn't it?
Oh,
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that's terribly offensive, given what we're.
No, we're just going to have to re-rate the episode. This is not going to be one of our usual.
Josh, I'm wondering here to give maybe give this some kind of a scientific gloss. This post article was written by an MD named Trisha Pashricha, I want to say is her name. I mean, why? Without getting too graphic here, can you explain what her case is for why a bidet is a better choice?
well, this is. I just ate lunch. I got to talk about this.
You wrote the story, dude.
Oh, that's not my fault. The crux of the article is that it's better to wash it off than to smear it around.
Okay.
But there are other medical things that come up. It may be more hygienic, but there's also another risk, and that's fecal vaginal contamination. If the thing is like not aimed properly, so that's actually a real problem. But that's about all the science that really is in this, and that's probably overstating it. So what I'd like to do next is just give you an idea of what some of the lunatics that follow me wrote in. Before I do that, though, I ran into a portable bidet, which looks like a water bottle with a really long spout on it for when you're traveling. All right. Well, that's not going to be in my suitcase anytime soon.
Or if you're bored at home on a Friday night,
Well, as I put the only use I can think of it is on April Fool's Day when you use the thing and then swap it out for a Gatorade bottle at a football game and just wait for somebody to use it. And that's about it.
Oh yeah, really helpful stuff. Really helpful
Okay,
stuff.
let's get to the comments because it's
Yeah, the
gotten
comments
better.
are the best.
Yeah, my
Okay.
favorite. You can read it if you want, but one of our dear commenters pointed out, the problem of installing these in public bathrooms, which horrifies me. The thought of bidets in public restrooms, which are disgusting on their own.
Well, I think half the people will think it's a water fountain. So there's a problem right there because we've got so many morons in this country. So a number of people talked about countries where they're in public bathrooms. I guess people get used to them. But there's some technology involved here, all right? And there are a number of ways to wash yourself. And, oh, good God, why did I do this? For instance, the drying issue is not insignificant. And there are a number of important opinions here. Some lunatic named the priest said, I'm going to invent a bidet you wear 24/7 and it just drenches your ass all day, every day. To which I replied, do not invite the priest to sit on your new Chesterfield velvet upholstered sofa, $35.99 at Pottery Barn. So priest likes to keep it wet. There's another lunatic who probably needs a little psychological help. His name is Burdock Eyes, and he says, I like to rinse using a bidet, dab dish detergent on the toilet paper, rinse again, and then dry with toilet paper. It's the only sure way to get my bottom cleaned. What's he going to be doing? Recombinant DNA research in there? Like, how clean does it need to be? You're not sipping cream soda out of the thing. I mean, I just said paging Dr. Freud and Mr. Clean on that one.
We are a morning comedy show now, right?
Yes, we are.
This morning, all we need is a soundboard, and we're good to go.
Perhaps. Well, I'm on a roll, Daddy-O, so just...
Oh, there's more. Of course, there's more.
Absolutely. Someone named Marza wrote, I have bought at least 5 bidets at this point. They make great birthday gifts because you can write a card that says Happy Bidet and also invite yourself over to install it for them. And my response is, the obvious question is, how many anuses does Marza have since she needs 5 bidets? And what's the appropriate reciprocative gift to someone who gives you a bidet? And the best I could come up with was color-coded catheters or an engraved do-it-yourself liver biopsy kit. Somebody gives you a bidet, good luck. What are you going to give them back? And
one more. Only one more.
Okay. One of the people simply said, I prefer to use 3 seashells. And then some, that's where I stopped, and that's probably a decent place to stop. Although actually people wrote in and researched that, and there's something to it.
Because in this world that we live in, of course there is.
Well, it's all a shell game, That's awful.
Oh my goodness. All right. I think we should stop before we just go entirely off the rails here.
So welcome to 2024.
Yeah. With that, everyone have a lovely new year. We wish you lots of success and bidets if you so choose.
Keep it clean, guys.
I don't even
Bye.
know. Look, we're done. We're done. Follow us on social media. It's at ACSH.org. Dr. Bloom is at ACS or at Doc. What? Josh Bloom ACSH.
Yes. I got you a little rattled, didn't I?
I'm all disheveled. What can I say here? And then I'm at Cam J English. Chuck is the wisest of us, and he's nowhere near Twitter or X or whatever. All right, everyone. Happy 2024. We'll see you on the other side.